Hey folks, Fernando doing another video for the more survivalists and trying to answer the question, is this the best prepper survival knife in the market right now? Yes, no, this is not a clickbait video. I actually try to answer these questions myself and I'm not afraid of going there. A lot of people immediately have this knee-jerk reaction of, how dare you say something is better than something else? Well, that's one of the exercises I find to be very useful in terms of, well, what is best? What is the ideal folding knife for a prepper, someone that is into survivalism and wants a utilitarian tool for some of the more demanding potential emergencies in which you may find yourself. Before going on with the video, remember, if you're interested in realistic practical survival and preparedness, you have my books, 3 Survival Skills and Surviving the Economic Collapse, available in Amazon following the links below. Also, if you're interested in movies and video games, it's the last couple days of the promotion for Star Citizen. If you haven't played Star Citizen, you probably want to check it out. If you just even like video games at all, Star Citizen is something else. And I have a channel dedicated to movies and video games, following the links there below as well. It's called Gem Reviews. I have some movie reviews. I'll actually be I'll see the Elvis movie tonight and let you guys know what I think about it. Seems to be quite nice. About Star Citizen, these last couple days, you can use the referral code, which will give you an extra free ship, which is a pretty big deal because these things usually sell for money and they're kind of expensive. So a free ship is always nice to have in the game. It's the last couple days, so if you're thinking about doing that, take advantage of it. Use a promotional code, the referral code for the promotion this weekend. What else? Well, that's basically it. Let's get to the review. So which one is the best survival, tactical, prepper, folding knife you could possibly think of? With thousands upon thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of different knives, it's pretty much almost impossible to answer that question. Yet, why not try? Look, I have a folding knife here, which is something that I've carried for quite some time, and I think I carried actually for years. This little Victorinox knife. It's a GAC German Army knife made by Victorinox. It's good quality, but it's, you know, a little folding knife. There's really not much to it. Yet, in those conditions, with those legal restrictions, this was pretty much the best I could get. So for me, at that time, in that context, with those restrictions, this was potentially the best folding knife for me to have. I couldn't have these with me at all times. I mean, certain situations I could, but not always. So that dictates what was the best folding knife for me. Now, if I have more of a broad, amount of knives to select from, to choose from, if I'm not restricted by a locking mechanism or by a blade length, what is it that I want in a survival knife? What is it I want in a prepper knife so as to deal with potential emergencies? Do I want the nicest, fanciest, coolest, most expensive steel there is? It probably doesn't change that much. You know, nice steel is of course good to have, and those of us that appreciate knives certainly enjoy it, but it's not one of the priorities by any means. So one of the kind of things I was looking for, and literally this has been for me for years, is a knife that would allow me to do the following: cut a seatbelt, break a glass, break a window in a building or in a house, in a car, in some transportation, whatever the situation was, something that allowed me to smash and cut a seatbelt if needed. And there was a model that probably still is around it, the Gerber Escape, I think it's called, or Rescue, something along those lines. That was very close to what I was looking at. That could potentially be a fantastic, prepper or survival folding knife, though the reviews were really not all that great. There was one from Acorn. There's still a model from Acorn. Again, it has like a little cut here in the handle, so in theory you could cut the seat with that, but it feels a little bit more gimmicky. The blade was not all that much, and Acorn, it's a fantastic manufacturer in Germany. It's a nice high-end knife. Those things are not exactly cheap, but still not exactly what I was looking for. Now, when I saw this, I thought, man, that is pretty much what I think could be the best survival prepper knife. You have a Tanto Clip, which is super strong. Not only is it a Tanto Clip, it's a Tanto tip. It's a little bit of a longer, elongated Tanto tip, which will penetrate very nicely. These kind of tips, in my experience, they don't cut so much as punch holes into stuff, holes that, yes, remain there. So this is super effective as something for self-defense. It's super effective as simply a sharpened pry bar kind of knife. So you have like a 50-50, it's more like a 70-30 serration for people that are into knives. That's kind of like, you know, it's like an insult, it's sacrilege to have this kind of, you know, leave that for your steak knife. Well, in the practical aspect of things, you still have the straight edge and you have the serrations in case you have to cut through something that is harder. If I have to saw a bit through a wood, or I have to cut through, you know, some very thick cordage. In the more practical side of things, you usually see this in some of the knives for soldiers and for you know, for being used in the field, especially when there's people that don't know how to sharpen a knife, because the serrations help you get through stuff when the edge is not as sharp as it could potentially be. So if I think of it in terms of an emergency, a disaster, something where I'm going with the knife through stuff that I probably shouldn't, and I'm damaging the knife, even if that's the case, and I don't have the time, or I don't even have any way of sharpening it during the middle of that, I still have this serration that will probably help me cut through stuff. This is why in some of the models that I have, I appreciate the idea of Tanto tip, half edge. I think that is super utilitarian. Not only that, we also have a locking mechanism that is very tough. You open it with a flipper, and I have a flipper here as well. I have flippers in our knives. These are fantastic. These are super smooth. This is a lot bigger though, a lot more utilitarian, a lot more practical for when your hands, you know, you're cold or you're wearing gloves. For a soldier, for a law enforcement officer, I see that as something that's a lot more practical. In terms of preparedness, yes, when you're stressed, when you're nervous, it's going to be a lot easier to find this than to find this, okay? That's super easy to access. Even if you mess up and you don't go all the way, or it just stays there, you still have a stud so as to finish opening. One of the criticisms, dude, why didn't you just remove a bit of the material here? That would have been ideal, because it would have allowed you to access this much easier if you want to open it in the more traditional way, right? Just being all leveled, it's a lot more difficult to, you know, get the skin of your finger right kind of in there and then open it. This, you know, just a little bit of work there would make that a lot easier. Then, in terms of the locking mechanism, you have a liner lock, which in my experience, liner locks can be super tough and reliable. Even the much smaller liner lock in my Leatherman has withstood a lot of use and even a little bit of abuse over the years. So I know a good liner lock will work when it's needed. Not only that, you also have a reinforced liner lock with a separate locking mechanism for the lock itself. So not only do you have the liner lock moving into place as you open it, then a little bar falls right in that gap, and it's not allowing the liner lock to move away from the blade. This is a super strong mechanism. Now, CRKT says it's a virtual fixed blade. Yeah, no. It's not a virtual fixed blade. If fixed blades are either fixed blades or they're not. This is still a very tough locking mechanism, and I think it's fantastic for a utilitarian knife like this. And besides, then, of course, you have the glass breaker. Carbide glass breakers has to smash windows in cars and you know, in a house or wherever else you need to break and smash stuff. This will be ideal. It has a certain weight, it has a certain size. I think it's ideal. I've seen smaller ones, which in my taste is a little bit too small, and something a lot bigger, man, that is kind of like carrying a brick all day. But this for me is pretty much the ideal blade size and length. This is, I think it's about 9, what is it, like It's about 9 centimeters, so it's a bit under, I think it's like 3.75 inches, so a little bit under 4-inch blade. I think that's a good medium-sized blade. And besides being a nice blade length, it's quite thick as well. This is gonna be super robust. If I have to twist and, you know, pry with it and that sort of thing, this knife will perform. Now, as of steel, Aus 8, you know, you don't have anything fancy, you just need something that's tough. And Aus 8 is tough enough. Edge retention, yeah, so. This is, you know, if you tell me, oh, this is a much better knife, I won't argue against that. Is this a better knife? You know, much better looking knife? Quality of construction, materials? Yes, never argue the opposite, the contrary to that. But this, I feel, is more of a utilitarian survival tool. If you're more of the bushcrafty crowd, then this is something of, yeah, it seems like sacrilege. You know, what is that? Serrations? No, you want a good quality steel that you'll sharpen and do your bushcrafty thing and carve and do that stuff. That is not survival or preparedness the way I conceive it. That is bushcrafting. It's fantastic. It has its beauty to it and even a practical side when it comes down to it in certain specific emergencies. Most emergencies people will face will involve something like this. In fact, most emergencies people will face where your life is in the line and you need a knife is going to be more about the, you know, stabby, pokey thingy. And for that, you have a lot of finger protection with this flipper. Look how that covers your hand. This is beautiful. For a fighting knife, if you have to defend yourself with this, I mean, I'm not going to be, you know, shying away from this one. This needle point, this is going to be penetrating insanely. This will have fantastic penetration. So either one of these for the stabby roll of things will do beautifully well. This one though, when it comes more to abusing, tools, smashing, cutting, seat belts, that sort of stuff, I feel this one is better. A little criticism. Yes, this clip, in my experience, these clips are, you know, kind of the ones that catch on everything that you have, you know, and it's little details like this, like that final shape going up. Look at how it's designed here. That is, you see how that is, you know, just almost parallel to the blade, to the surface of the scale, right? This catches some stuff a lot more than this. Little details, you know, I'll see if it bothers me enough, maybe I'll just cut it down a little bit or even bend it. Probably even more so, just cut it a little bit, give it just a little bit of a twist there in the end and make it a little bit more subtle, you know, something that's not so aggressively pointing up and catching or whatever crap is getting in its way. Nothing fancy in terms of the scale. This is a fiberglass reinforced nylon, but it's tough. It's, you know, it's solid. Man, I think it's a strong challenger for that. If you think that there's something that you believe, no, this other knife is a lot better as a survival knife, let me know in the comments below. I'd really like to check it out. But for these, this concept that I had in my head for a few years now, that the rescue or evade or whatever the hell it was, Gerber, they had going on there at a moment, but the reviews as of the construction and, you know, were not really all that good. But that idea of smash and cutting and a nice utilitarian blade that's super easy to access with a very strong locking mechanism, man, I like this one quite a bit. And it's supposed to be a law enforcement model because there says M1614ZLA, stands for law enforcement, so it has that thing about it. Designed by Carson, who's a very well-known knife designer. So Carson design, and you definitely see the intelligence in this design. I absolutely see that all day long. The idea of cutting the belt like that instead of, you know, the more gimmicky notch in the handle, yeah. Guys, that's the way I see it. That's my take on this. I'll leave the links for this knife and similar ones. There's several similar ones from CRKT that are along these lines. If you have little other variations and you're not interested in the seatbelt cutter and some of this other stuff, still a great knife. See you in the next video. Take care, guys.